Quick little update here on some Latin American news. The president of Argentina, Cristina Kirchner, will soon be traveling on a tour of the Middle East. So an employee or an official mostly associated with the military, I believe, went to a bank to withdraw some money to pay for the expenses related mostly to the plane flight over to the Middle East. So he took out $68,000 and 17,000 euros from the bank, put it in a suitcase, and started to drive home. And when he got to his apartment, three cars drove up around him, mugged him, and jacked the suitcase full of money. So $68,000, 17,000 euros gone. How do you say, inside job, perhaps? Now on to Bolivia. When Evo Morales won the presidency and took office in 2006, it was the great hope for social, left-thinking people all over the world that finally, in a country whose people had been exploited for centuries by the rich elite, there would be a leader who would actually fight for the interests and the well-being and the aspirations of the masses. And actually, although it's hard for me to stay well-informed on the matter, every once in a while I read positive articles about macroeconomic statistics in Bolivia. So I think things are going fairly well, although there's plenty of people who would disagree with that. There are still big business deals being signed in Bolivia. They just happen to be companies from China and India rather than the United States. But that's our problem, not Bolivia's problem. So the final chapters haven't been written. It seems like it's going well, but until now, when it's finally all unraveling for Evo Morales. Last month, shortly before Christmas, he announced that he was going to remove the subsidies on natural gas being the major fuel for transportation, private and public, in Bolivia. This caused major riots in many cities in Bolivia, paralyzing the country for a couple days until he withdrew his announcements and replaced the subsidies. The irony is on top of ironies here. First of all, when Evo was building his career as the leader of the coca growing union, one of his biggest tools was to do these social protests and demonstrations that would paralyze certain cities or certain regions of the country. And he used these to propel himself into national prominence and eventually the presidency. How ironic that once he's in the presidency, the people use these tools against him. Maybe not so ironic. That's what happens. Those are the cycles. Also, you got people in any country like Bolivia, developing country, there's two big schools of thought. One is that the people have been exploited for centuries and some by the rich elite and the corporate interests, and now somebody needs to fight for the aspirations of the people. And the other point of view is the neoliberal Chicago, IMF, Washington consensus train of thought that you have to cut federal government social spending and let the corporations and the private market take over everything in the country and let the economy grow that way, and the rising sea will lift all ships. So Evo obviously comes from the more liberal first school of thought, but he becomes president, and one of his policies here last month was to adopt the neoliberal idea of removing subsidies on a very important product, or the natural gas. And it caused a massive popular uprising against the popular leader of the country. And what this also exposed is the third branch of power in the country, which is actually the smugglers. The smugglers and the people who profit from smuggling have been making huge profits by taking the subsidized natural gas, exporting it to other countries and selling it and making a giant windfall over that. So while it wasn't apparent until last month, that's actually the force that is now taking a lot of power in Bolivia. And but Evo's he is unraveling. Although he's gotten his people into the judiciary and the legislature, and it's got the government pretty much in his hands. In his choice, his party rebelled against him and rejected his choice for mayor of Sucre, which is one of the two capital cities of Bolivia. And the troubling thing is, because he took concentrated so much power in the government into his party, the movement towards socialism, there isn't really an effective opposition or any heir apparent. So if it does get worse for him and he loses power, I'm not sure what's going to replace him or what's going to follow, and I worry whenever there's a power vacuum, instability and violence generally follow, especially in Latin America. Finally, a little quiz. Do you know the name of the president of Paraguay and the name of one of his top military assistants? Well, here they are. That's right, if you guessed Dr. Evil and Hermann Goering, you were correct. In reality, that president's name is Fernando Lugo, and I don't know who the Nazi is. But that's the end of this little update on Latin America. Thanks for watching.